So we're turning to chapter Gimel, Bamidbar, chapter Gimel, Pasuk Aleph. What's going on at the Alter Rebbe brings in the Torah that we always read Pasha Bamidbar prior to Matan Torah, which means that the messages, in most years we read Pasha Bamidbar immediately before Chag Shavuos, which is the Chag of Matan Torah. This year we had the Kriyas is also slightly different in that we read Pasha Nosai immediately before Shavuos, but our Pasha Bamidbar must always occur before Shavuos, and Pasha Nosai only rarely does occur. So therefore the Alter Rebbe says that all of the lessons which we need to know when it gets Chag Matan Torah are hidden in Pasha Bamidbar. So we're beginning with chapter Gimel, Pasuk Aleph. Ve'ela Teildos Aaron u'Moshe b'yom diber Hashem es Moshe b'har Sinai. Ve'ela shmois b'nei Aaron abecher Nadav avihu Elazar v'Isamar. And then he goes on to say that Eila shmois b'nei Aaron hakoyanim hamushuchim Hashem milei yodom l'chahei. So now this chapter, the beginning of this Perek Gimel, comes after we've been told at length not only the mishparim of all the shvatim in the tremendous pikud that Moshe Rabbeinu made, the counting of the Yidden, together with all the tribes, about all the Nasiim of the tribes and their Degolim, the Seder of the flags of the Degolim. And also it's been mentioned prior to that that Shevet Levi was not included in the actual counting of the Yidden Ba'ifim Kloli and the arrangement of the Degolim and the Shvatim. We're only told that Moshe was instructed that the Levium would camp around immediately the Mishkan when everybody came to camp in the desert, and that the Levium would have a special task of guarding the Mishkan and carrying out all the work of the Mishkan. So up to now we've listed the names and the numbers of all the tribes except for Shevet Levi. So in this chapter Gimel we now go ahead some psukim after where we are now, and we count the Levium. We count the Levium as a separate tribe, and like we said, they were not counted together with the Bnei Yisrael. So all of a sudden, prior to that whole counting of the Levium comes along the Pasuk, and it says, these are the Teildos, these are literally the generations of Aaron and Moshe. B'yom, in the day that Diber Hashem es Moshe, in the day that the Eibusha spoke with Moshe Rabbeinu, B'har Sinai, in the Mount. In Mount Sinai, which is the day of Matan Torah. And then he says, Ve'ela shmois b'nei Aaron. And if we look carefully all the way through, we don't see any more mention of Moshe Rabbeinu, or his children, or anything to do with the tales of Moshe Rabbeinu. The only tales we're told are the tales of Aaron, not of Moshe Rabbeinu. So we could say that what's all of a sudden there's appear along almost family tree, like almost a Ayichus brief, what they call Ayichus document in reference to Aaron and his children, and all about them and their names, Kulu. And Moshe, we expected was going to be mentioned that way, and he wasn't. His name is mentioned immediately after the name of Aaron. There the tales of Aaron and Moshe, and then we see only the tales of Aaron. Moshe Rabbeinu not mentioned. Again, the Ramban tells us that he is mentioned, but much later, and in a way that you have to be a tremendously accurate observer to see that in effect he is mentioned. According to Rashi and most of the great Meforshim, we don't see Moshe Rabbeinu or his generations mentioned openly in the continuation of the whole thing. So in simple terms we can say that Rashi's already mentioned earlier that the Levium were not counted amongst the Yidden per se, and they're only mentioned what's going to be their place of camping and what they're going to have to do with regards to Mishkan, but they weren't actually counted. And so Rashi brought over a statement that the Levium were Legionei Shel Melech. They were the king's personal legion. How do you say the king in every country? Yeah, there's all the army and all the people that they look after the country, and then the king's got his own particular.
King's Guard.
So, King's Guard, yeah, very nice. It has the King's Guard, and then they make the changing of the guard, what they're going to do it. The king has his own particular guard, so Rashi calls that Legionei Shel Melech. It's similar to the word legion, yes, it's a Greek root word referring to like a military arrangement or group. That the Levium are the Eberste special King's Guard. And therefore they have to be separate, and they have to be counted separately, and they have to be referred to and dealt with their halachas and inyanim separately to the rest of the Eden. So we can say that having finished with the whole Seder of the flags and the counting and the arrangement of the flags and in what way they traveled, etc., of all the Eden, we're now about to turn to the Levium. Since we're turning to the Levium, we have to mention them in a very special and what you might call pompous way, because they're the Legionei of the Melech. They're the Mamish, the emissary, King's Legion. Therefore, we start off with their toilets, with the whole story of the leader of the Levium, who was Aaron, and Moshe, because Moshe was also from the Mishpachas HaLeviim. And therefore, ask yourself to Shaila, why is it that we only mention the air conditioner's not working? Is that the idea? It's why do we mention only the tailors of Aaron, even though we put Moshe in? So you might say, well, that's pretty obvious why the emphasis is on Aaron, because even though Moshe Rabbeinu was from the tribe of the Levium, he wasn't a Kohen Moshe Rabbeinu, even though he did serve as a Kohen during the initiation of the temple, of the Mishkan, but he wasn't a Kohen Moshe Rabbeinu. And so since we want to mention the emissary Legionei Shel Melech, what that would be the Kohenim, they'd be like in the King's Guard, they'd be the cavalry, the special pompous guys that are right in the middle of the King's Guard. Therefore we mention them especially, and the other Levim we just assume that they will be included in a general count that will be mentioned later on. And therefore the Pasuk says the Kohanim HaMeshuchim, the anointed Kohanim, are the people that we're dealing with here. Ashim Cain asked herself to Shaila, why did you mention Moshe Rabbeinu Melchatchila? Don't put Moshe Rabbeinu in. If the whole purpose is to interrupt with a passage before we count the Levium, but to show their greatness and their chashiva, and to show the great chashiva of Aaron as the leader of the whole Levitic group, being as he is the Kohanim, but they're a special Havdalah inside the Levium themselves, then just mention Aaron. Just say that this is the tales of Aaron, and these are all his children, they're the Kohanim HaMeshuchim, they are the anointed Kohanim, and then the Levium will just deal with them in a general way, but we're dealing with them separately, and that's a sign of their tremendous significance in a general way. Yeah, Legionei Shel Melech, the King's Guard. It ask herself the gewaldige Shaila, why do we put Moshe Rabbeinu in, and then we just mention his name almost, and then we just go weiter, and we don't really refer anything more to Moshe Rabbeinu. So that question occurred, I believe, to Rashi. And therefore Rashi puts in an amazing piece which tells us why Moshe Rabbeinu came in here, even though he's not really mentioned further. Says Rashi, Ve'ele teolis Aaron u'Moshe, ve'eno mazkir el b'nei Aaron. He doesn't really mention anything to do with Moshe, only the sons of Aaron. It was the priestly sect, the Kohanim HaMeshuchim. V'nikro teolis Moshe. Nonetheless, they're also called the Toildes of Moshe. Lefi shelomd or limdan Torah. Since Moshe Rabbeinu taught them Torah, the sons of Aaron had sons, and he taught the sons of Aaron Torah. Therefore, we call them the generations of Moshe also. Melamed, that comes to teach you. Shekol hamelamed es ben chaveiroi, somebody who teaches the son of his friend Torah. Male alov hakosuv keilu yelodei. The pasuk considers it as if he gave birth to that person. Well, I mean, that's pretty amazing going. In other words, that the whole reason we put, so, as we said, Rashi's emes kasha is not the kasha he mentioned, because that's just part of the story. We see there's the sons of Aaron. We don't mention Moshe anymore. What does that come to? But the question is, why mention Moshe at all, as we pointed out? So Rashi said, oh yes, we had to mention Moshe, because since he taught the sons of Aaron, we're only talking about the tales of Aaron, not about Moshe in that regard. Moshe Rabbeinu was put in to teach you a tremendously significant, what you might call halacha, or a fundament in Yiddishkeit, that somebody who teaches the son of his friend Torah is like as if he gave birth to him. Yeah, Yolanda, he brought him into being, gave birth to him. And then Rashi says, why on earth is it written B'yom Diber? This is on the day, well, it was because of the day that the Eivishter spoke to Moshe B'Har Sinai. What's that got to do with it? So therefore Rashi says B'yom Diber Hashem es Moshe. Yeah, Nasu Elu Atel Shaloi. Then these people that I mentioned further, they became Moshe Rabbeinu's Torah. They became his generation, his children. Shelimdon, because he taught them, Shalomad mipi hakavula, because he taught them what he learned from the mouth of the Gevura, what that means, the Eibishter. Pi hakavula is well known as an expression used particularly in reference to Matan Torah, the mouth of the Eibishter. On the day of the Shem's talking to Moshe at Mount Sinai, on that day, all these sons of Aaron became Moshe Rabbeinu's Torahs. They became mamish his children, because he taught them what he heard from the Pi HaGevura. Now I asked the Shaila, what does Rashi come to add with that? I mean, he told me in the previous thing that Moshe Rabbeinu is mentioned here only for the purpose of telling me that since he taught the sons of Aaron Torah, then they're like his, as if he gave birth to them. Now he says, no, we have to also mention the day of Matan Torah. Why did we mention the day of Matan Torah? Because it was the day of Matan Torah that they all became Moshe Rabbeinu's generations, the sons of Aaron. Why? Because he taught what he heard from the mouth of the Eibishter at Sinai. Well, what does that add? That just seems to repeat over in a more, literary or posh sort of a way what we just said. And it's not the way of Rashi to repeat things that he's already said, particularly one line after the other. So therefore we have to say that there's a difference. That what he said in the first piece and what he says in the next piece, there's a difference in Rashi. And therefore, if you notice carefully, you look at it and you study it carefully, in the first statement, he says that somebody who taught Ben Chaveroi Torah as if he Ki'ilu Yolod, like as if he gave birth to him. But in this one, Rashi says that on the day that they heard from Moshe Rabbeinu b'Sinai, then they became the Toilus Sheloi. They became Moshe Rabbeinu's generation. In other words, that's even stronger. They became Mamish Moshe Rabbeinu's kinder. Mamish his children. The first time around, Rashi says, is like as if he gave birth. Like as if he gave birth to them. So like as if is obviously a metaphorical, or how do you call it, a highfalutin metaphorical statement. Like as if he gave birth to them. Aber Nasu Eilad, they have been made Mamish into his own children. Why? Because Moshe Rabbeinu taught him what he learned, Mipi Hakapuna, what he learned directly from the mouth of the Eibishter in the giving of the Torah, on the day of the giving of the Torah in Mount Sinai. So it looks as if it's two nuances or two inyonim. Ki'ilu Yolodei, and then a new thing that they mamish became his Torah is because he gave over straight what he heard from the Eibishter. Well, if he's ekumtei, that pasuk is talking about it happened on the same day as Mount Torah. It happened on the same day. And there was B'yom Diber Hashem Es Moshe. Well, if we look carefully, we have to say that Moshe Rabbeinu finished hearing all he was supposed to hear on Mount Sinai, and he came down on Erev Yom Kippurim it was. And so there's a whole piece of a whole section of Gemara in Masechta Yuma where the Gemara tells us how Moshe Rabbeinu taught what he'd learned on Mount Sinai. When he came down, first of all he gathered Aaron together with him, and he taught Aaron. Then the Bnei Aaron came in, and Moshe Rabbeinu taught them. And then later he brought in the whole of the Bnei Yisrael, and he taught them. So the Gemara says that really Moshe Rabbeinu gave over what he'd heard 4 times. He taught first of all Aaron, then the sons of Aaron, and then the Yidden. Altogether it comes out, there's another piece in the middle there that makes up 4. Altogether Moshe Rabbeinu repeated it over several times. But immediately he came down, he gathered Aaron in, and he gathered Bonov, and he taught them. So we see that on the day that Moshe Rabbeinu came down from Sinai, there was a special immediacy. He gave over a certain inyanim to them. And then there's a inyan was called HaTorah. After that, you didn't learn Torah, and the way of learning Torah is that there has to be a Rav and a Talmud. You have to teach. Yeah, Torah has to go mipi a Rav el a Talmud. And Mamila, that goes with the Seder. Even that has in itself a Mamila of Kiluya, Lord, as if he gave birth to him. Now, that arouses a question. The intelligent reader immediately is aroused by the fact that every day in Kriyat Shema, do you think it's wise not to have the air conditioning going? I can see some people already wiping sweat off themselves.
So you put the fan on?
Well, if you put the fan on, it's going to blow this thing over. It'll blow it over. I don't know. I just noticed that certain people are finding it out without the air conditioning.
There's no electricity.
Yeah, the power is out. The power up on the air conditioners.
There's no air conditioning.
The electricity is out.
The electricity's out. Oh, I see. Okay. Good.
We could open the doors, maybe it'll help a bit of breeze.
In Canaan Malatava, as they say.
If we open the doors, maybe it'll get a breeze, don't mind?
Yeah, the only trouble is if those guys get into the hole like they do a bit later, then we're not going to be able to learn a thing. So anyway, I mean, I don't mind having the fan, but it's going to make a noise and maybe even blow this thing over. I don't know. We can maybe give it a try. All right, let's get moving. So every day in Kriyat Shema, we say, "V'hoyu advorim ha'ela, asher anechi mitzav chayim alav avecha," and then we say, "V'shinantom levonecha." You must teach them very sharply. The word shinantom, Rashi says, means to teach them clearly and sharply. Levonecha. Have you ever looked at Rashi over there? What does Rashi say over there? Rashi says that bonecha Banecha Elohim HaTalmidim. Banecha Elohim HaTalmidim. She says, Malamed Talmidim Nikroim Bonim. The Talmidim, the Rav teaches. Rashi brings a whole series of psukim. He brings about 4. Look it up over there. You guys say Kriya Shema every day, probably about 3 or 4 times a day. He says, Kedai, you should know what Rashi says on the Kriya Shema. If you look it over there, Rashi brings all sorts of psukim to show that the Talmidim are called Bonim. And then he goes back the other way, and he says, "Lo rak shatalmidim nikroim bonim, ela shaharav nikro aviem." That the Rav, the teacher, is called father. Rashi brings in psukim to go the other way to show you that the Rav is called the father. So it's quite an arichas in Rashi. It's not just a little, quick observation. It's quite a series of psukim. Rashi brings about 4 psukim at least to show that the Talmidim are called Bonim, and he brings 2 psukim to show that the Rav is called the father. So also to Shaila, how does that relate to what we're saying here? Here we're saying that if you teach Ben Chaveroi, the son of your Chaver, then it's like as if you gave birth to him. And then Rashi says they be Mamish's Torahs on the day of Matan Torah because he gave over immediately what he heard from. And then all of a sudden over there, Rashi says that the Talmidim are Bonim. Yeah, what Bonim means, people that are born from the person. So, why doesn't Rashi somehow or another link it up with what's said here? Why doesn't he say something that it's already been mentioned or anything? Just over there, Rashi just brings it to, in a very sort of, how would you call it, casual way, that the Talmidim are called Bonim. So we need to understand how does that fit in, and how does it relate with what we have here. So before we begin a more detailed discussion of that, we just have to point out that what's the diktuk that Rashi says that he who learns ben chaveroi. Rashi doesn't just say if you teach a yid, for example, your own son. He said you teach the son of your chaver. Malamed, she kol malamed is ben chaveroi ki'ilo yelod. So some people come along, the Maharal Miprag, for example. He says that Moshe Rabbeinu was a very special situation in that Moshe Rabbeinu was the first one to receive the Torah. He was, like we say in Pirkei Avos, Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai. Moshe was the first one. He was the Mekabel Rishon. So Moshe Rabbeinu had a task that he had to teach the Torah to the whole Klal Yisrael. And that was a tzivui to Moshe Rabbeinu according to most opinions. Even though the Gemara says in Masechta Nedarim that Moshe Rabbeinu was very generous, that since he was alone on Mount Sinai when he received the Torah, he could have put the whole Torah in his bosom, in his pocket, Moshe Rabbeinu, and he could have just come down and said, "Okay, you guys, I got the Torah, bye-bye," So he's not thinking that Moshe could have done that. He was tremendously generous and unselfish, Moshe Rabbeinu. He taught everybody the Torah. Now that's another Indian. Moshe Rabbeinu was required to teach everybody the Torah. He received the Torah, and his task was to give it over to everybody. So says the Maharal Miprag, that's what he taught to the Bnei Aaron so specially. And like we said, the Gemara Masechta Yuma says that he started off with them and then he taught the Klal Yisrael. L'chera Moshe Rabbeinu could have called in the whole Klal Yisrael immediately, and he could have sat them down with the Bnei Aaron, and he could have said, "Okay, you guys are also Yidden. I mean, true, you're Kohanim and you're important people, and you're my nephews, and you're Aaron's his brother. You listen to the Torah with all the Yidden together." And the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu went out of his way to teach Dafkid, the Bnei Aaron, says the Maharal Miprag, that was how do you call it, like a Lifnim Mishuras Hadin, like a Hasidic type of way of doing it with the Bnei Aaron, and he was not obliged to do that, and yet nonetheless he did it. That's considered Ki'ilu Yeloda. So according to the Maharal Miprag, this whole idea of Kilu Yelodai, as if he gave birth to them, is only if you do it in a way that you're not really obliged to do it. But nonetheless, you give away your time and your koyach to this particular ben of your friend, ben chaveroi, now why not benoi? What about if he teaches his own son? Because that we see that there's a special passage that we say every day in the Sheish Zechiros, that it's written, Hoidatam livonecha, that you must teach your children. And the Rambam says that you must teach your children and your grandchildren. That there's a chiyuv min haTorah on a mensch to teach his child and his grandchild. So it's written, Hoidatam livonecha ulivnei vonecha. Therefore, everybody's mechuyev to teach his own child. So therefore the diktuk in Rashi is ben chaver, is somebody that's not your own child, and in particular in the case of Moshe Rabbeinu, he didn't have necessarily any interdivided obligations. He just had to teach the whole Klal Yisrael Torah. Nonetheless, he gave this amazing privilege to Aaron who Bonov. Well, that comes to teach you that where there's a special going out of his way on the part of a Rav to teach somebody, then that's Kilu Yelodah. Now there's another great, much later Pirush on Rashi, but he's called Maskil David. It's written by a great Spanish Rav David Pardo, was his name. He was a great Spanish Godel, and he was much later than the Maharal Miprag. However, he says similarly that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't really Mechuya, but what Moshe Rabbeinu did with the Bnei Aaron, and that fits in well with the Lashon of Rashi, that he made them as if they were his son. He considered the Bnei Aaron as if they were his own sons, because your own son you're b'vadai mechuyev to teach. Yeah, that's clear that everybody holds that you must teach your own son, and that's a chiyuv. But the sons of Aaron, as far as Moshe Rabbeinu was concerned, maybe not. Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu treated them like his own son. So therefore said to him, the Maskil David, that he also shares the Maharal's opinion in general, that where you do something that you're not mamish mechuya, and you had to put it, you invest powers in worrying about another person, young person, even though he's not your son, he's the son of somebody else, and B'klal you may not have any kesher with his father, but you're concerned about it and you put koyches into him, and therefore it's as if you gave birth to him, like as if you brought him into the world. However, that fits in nicely with the first Lashon in Rashi. However, the second Lashon, where Rashi says that on the day of Mount Sinai they became mamish's toilets, then we need to understand what's the addition there, and what is Rashi adding with that expression. Now, if we go into the source where Rashi got all this from, then we find an interesting diuk, which is similar to what two Rashis tend to sort of add one thing to the other. We're going to see in the Gemara a similar thing. Even though the two Gemaras are very far in the Masechta, they're a long way away one from the other, and some of the great Meforshim don't necessarily make a kesher between. Comes along the Gemara Masechta Sanhedrin. Well, it's well known, the famous diuk of the Rebbe Melech HaMoshiach, that the word Sanhedrin is really a Greek word. It's not a word in Kodesh. And the Rebbe once made a whole deal about that. Why would we call the great Jewish rabbinic court, why would we call it in a Greek name with the whole Riches? However, Sekta Sanhedrin, Omer Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani, Omer Rabbi Yonasan, Kol HaMalamed es ben Chaveroi Toiro Ma'aleh Olav HaKosov Ki'ilu Yilodah. That's the lesson we have in the first Rashi. And then he says, Shenema Ve'ela Teolis Aaron U'Moisha. These are the generations of Aaron U'Moisha. Amamela Ve'ela Re'uksi Ve'ela Shmeis B'nai Aaron Lo Yimelecho Aaron Yolod U'Moisha Limeid Lafichach Nikro Al Shmoi. Now Rashi doesn't bring that whole little empty piece in the middle where the Gemara says that Aaron gave birth to them, albeit but Moshe Rabbeinu taught them, and therefore they call on Moshe Rabbeinu's name, not on the name of of Aaron. In other words, the Gemara says Kilu Yilodei, but then it adds an extra little nuance that even though Aaron gave birth to them before, there's another birth and there's a form of a birth, and maybe that's an emerson type of birth that Moshe Rabbeinu gets it, and therefore they call Al Shmoi Moshe Rabbeinu's name. That's the pshat the Teil is Aaron u Moshe. The Teil is, and that would be very good. Why mention Aaron first and then afterwards Moshe? Because first of all, Aaron gave birth to them. Although there's a new father here, and he's maybe the emerson father as well, or as a Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's a diuk nifla of al chaponim. She is satisfied with the fact that Ki'ilu Yiloda. And he doesn't go into that whole extra little diuk about being called Davke, Moshe Rabbeinu Davke being called their real father. Al chaponim, that's one Gemara. Then we go all the way over to the end of this whole Masechta, almost on Daf Tzadik Tes, right over near the end of the whole Masechta. And over there, it's another Baal HaMemra. This time it's Reish Lakish. What's one on? He was a Talmud from Rabbi Yochanan. And for you guys interested, Reish Lakish was Baal Tshuva. You know the whole story. The Gemara brings in Masechta Gittin that Reish Lakish was he was a Baal Tshuva. Anyway, Kol HaMalam says Reish Lakish, Kol HaMalamed es ben Chaveroi Toiro Ma'alov HaKosu Ki'ilu Asoi. That Reish Lakish says that whoever teaches the son of his friend Torah, it's as if he made him. Ki'ilu Asoi. He made him, he shaped him and made him. Shenema, where do we get that from? Es ha-nefesh asher osu b'choron. That's another pasuk, not the pasuk we had, not Rashi's pasuk, of course, it's another pasuk. But if I wonder, I can make a quiz to see how many people know where that pasuk is written. But that's written by Avraham Avinu and Sarah, right near the beginning of Pasha Lech Lecha, when Avraham Avinu goes out into Eretz Yisrael, and it's written that they took with them all their rechush, and they took with them es ha-nefesh asher osu b'choron. They took all the souls that they'd made when they were still in Chutz La'aretz, in Charon. So what does Rashi say over there? The Rashi says, why are they called nefesh asher osu b'choron? So Rashi says, because they were Megayer Anashim. That Avraham Avinu was Megayer de Anoshim, and Sarah was Megayeres as Anoshim. And therefore, it's clear that they made them all together. Asher osu b'choron. So now that's talking about the Inyan Geru. Somebody who wasn't Malchatchila Shayach to the Kanfei Shechina B'Klal. Avraham Avinu and Sarah brought him in under the Kanfei Shechina, and therefore they made them. But we're talking about somebody after Matan Torah, somebody teaches somebody Torah, and all of a sudden he brings me a pasuk, Reish Lakish from this whole thing, and he learns that it's got to do with any form of teaching Torah. Not just the way Avraham Avinu was Megaya people, he brought them B'Klal, Tachas Kanfei Shechina, but it's got to do B'Klal. If you teach somebody Torah, you make him into a whole new Metzias, Legamra. Anaya Mensch, Legamra Metzias Chadosha. And therefore he brings a raya from the Inyan of the girls of Avraham Avinu with the Mensch. So a lot of people say, what is that? Why didn't Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachmani, we began with over there, in the early part of the Masechta, why didn't he learn from here? Why did he just say Kilo Yolad? Then he says Kilo Asoy, as if he made him, and he learns from. So one of the Bali Achidushim over here, he's actually the Rabbi Yonason Eibeshit, but he was one of the great Geonim, he says that the Gemara at the beginning of the Masechta went with a shitta that you don't learn Benegeti in Yonim after Matan Torah from things before Matan Torah. That you can't really bring a clear raya to something that happened before Matan Torah to things that happened after Matan Torah. No? So therefore he says on that basis he didn't want to learn from what happened with Avraham Avinu and Tzorcha. They were still before Matan Torah. Oh, well, we could say that, I mean, that is a klal, emes. I mean, cholila, we should be cholila of the etzem principle, because there is such a klal. However, we could say that Reish Lachish here means taking that also into account. And l'chera, he means to say that if Avraham Avinu, what was before Matan Torah, and there wasn't mamish the Torah in existence per se, if Avraham Avinu could take people and turn them into being a new type of people, in a way that it's called as if they were osu. He made them all from the start, and he made them into new personages and new peoples. Then arachas kama v'kama v'kal v'choyima after Matan Torah. If you teach somebody Torah that he didn't know Torah before, and you teach him Torah, and you make him mamish into a legamri, a new Metzias, and on the contrary, that's not a kashi mitzadin and ein malamdim lifnei Matan Torah. Forget, Reish Lachish means to bring ayin from a kal v'chema, and particularly that Reish Lachish himself was a Baal Teshiva, and he was what do you call him, a Jesse Jack. He was one of those those guys that run around chopping people. What? Alistim, says the Gemara. He was Alistim. But Alistim means I know what it is in the old Australian language, but that wouldn't fit with most of you guys. He was a renegade. No, a renegade. I don't know how to call him. Outlaw. He was an outlaw. So he was an outlaw, Reish Lachish. And he saw Rabbi Yochanan, and he took one look at Rabbi Yochanan, and he became a Baal Teshuva. You know the whole story, but he jumped from the mountainside into the lake. He jumped a huge jump in order to get alongside Rabbi Yochanan. And Rabbi Yochanan saw that gevura of jumping such a jump, and he said, "Cheilach lo yiraisa." He said that power and that strength should be turned into the Torah. And after that, Reish Lachish became a Baal Teshuva, but he couldn't jump back again after that. And so the Gemara says, "Malamed sha'Torah mateshes koicha shalodon." Once you start, even if you take on this Torah, you're not as strong in Gashmius as you were before. But that doesn't mean you're allowed to be gesund. You have to be gesund and starek, but you're not as stark in Kumias as you were before. Anyway, whatever, that's another issue. However, we see that Reish Lachish, he Davki says that he learns this whole Indian from the way Avraham Avinu and Sarah Yemenu made Gerim, and he calls it Kilu Asoy. You make a whole new mensch. Agan Sanayim Latiyas, if you teach a mensch Torah. So there's two different nuances in the same Masechta for two different. So it would be right to say that those are two different opinions, or maybe rather than making a difference of opinion, maybe we would say it's like two different ideas or two different levels in the whole concept of what Torah does to you if you learn Torah and you hadn't learned it before. And that's what we find. That the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach comes along with an amazing chidush. But again, to the second Rashi over here, that Rashi brings that Nasu Eilu HaToil Shaloi Shalimdon Mashalomod Mipi HaGvura. That's in the day, and we said that that's talking about when Moshe Rabbeinu came down immediately from Mount Sinai, and without any further ado, he immediately called in the Bnei Aaron and he started teaching them, and then later he called in the Klal Yisrael. So what's it the Chiddush Yemot given? Said the Rebbe, what was so unusual about that moment that Moshe Rabbeinu is telling them what he heard at Mount Sinai, as compared to later, if we learn Torah, even though of course that's also from Mount Sinai, but we didn't actually hear it, Mipia HaGevurah. So the Rebbe says an amazing thing. What happened by Matan Torah? And that's why we say that all these inyanim are preparations for Matan Torah. As is up to El Torah. So what happened at Matan Torah? So it's written that Atem tiyuli mamleches koyanim, you'll be a kingdom of priests, v'goy kodesh, and you'll be a holy nation. A goy means the El Torah brings it. In Torah and other places, that means the idea of the Matthias of a mensch. as manhood, but not necessarily anything particularly great. A goy kadosh becomes an inyan from kedusha in the etzem matzias of a mensch kipshuta, and to the point that the Abbot said you'll be a zgula, you'll be a living elixir, li mikol ho'amim. So the Rebbe said that a greater shinui mizeh lo yachol להיות. That comes out that Yidden became, at the moment of Matan Torah, they became a whole new Matthias. They became out of Chatonu Mikol Ho'am. And we learned just now in Tanya, Perek Tes, the Alter Rebbe said that was a filu mitzat guf, that the Eibishter chose the Jewish body to be different than all the bodies in the rest of the world. In other words, that the etzem guf of a Jew became something different. Out of Chatonu, that the Eibishter chose a Yid. And therefore, automatically, a Yid became a Kohen. So, Ein Lachanami, there's certain people that they're privileged to be Kohen Imami. And there's nothing that those who are not Kohenim can ever do. They'll never be able to be a Kohen. And they'll never be able to reach that shleimus. As the well-known, the famous Yechidus that the Rebbe Melech HaMashiach once had with a person that he was a Kohen, but he wasn't a Fruma Yid, but he's a Rega. And the Rebbe told him that he's got something that even he doesn't have. And the Rebbe said, have you ever heard about me and you heard about my position? The Rebbe Mom said the most amazing thing to him. And he said, yes, you're the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and so on and so forth. The Rebbe said, but I don't come, there's absolutely no way I could ever come to what you are. He was just absolutely mind-boggled. He said, what do you mean? What are you saying, Rabbi? So the Rebbe said, because you're a Kohen and I'm a Yisrael. I can never be a Kohen. And he became a Baal Tshuva. It's true. He became a Baal Tshuva. Amen. From that we see that the Kohanim are legamre another gather altogether. They are a new Kedusha in the very essence of the person, and it goes from generation to generation, and you can't alter that, and you can't get it. There was only one person who did. Does anybody know who he was? That he wasn't a Kohen and became a Kohen. Pinchas, Yofi. His name is also Pinchas. That Pinchas became a Kohen even though he wasn't. Even though he belonged to the priestly family, but Rashi brings that he wasn't a Kohen. He wasn't a Kohen of Mashuchim. That's a very interesting deal. He wasn't anointed as a Kohen, but he was made into a Kohen by the Eibishter. However, nobody else has ever done that. The fact that Yidden became, as a general nation, they became a Mamleches Kohanim. Well, that means that something very special happened in their very mahus. They became something which is Atav Chatonu v'Ato Hivdaltono Mikola. You separated it off from all the peoples, and we have in ourselves something that it's just not there by others. Elohim Cain, they will go through all sorts of special changes, and then they can come to it. But I say it's not child. And that became even more, it became an infant Zagula. What a Zagula, Rashi says over there, a Zagula is a sort of special treasure what the king keeps in his treasure house itself. He keeps a special little treasure, but that's the treasure of all of his treasures. And that's called a Zagula. And so Yidden are like the treasure of all the treasures. A Zagula Mikol. So the Rebbe said that's a shinui in the very mahus of the man. That's not just a change, that now he's a little bit more spiritually informed, or he's gone a bit higher, or he's got some knowledge that other people didn't get, maybe they can get it. It's a change in the very essence that you become like Rashi says over there, that a Kohen is a sar. The original meaning of the word Kohen is like a minister to the king, somebody in the courtage, that he called the special inner courtier, that he called the special inner court of the king. That's a shinui in the very mahus. So therefore the Rebbe said that's what Rashi is maramis, but again to Moshe Rabbeinu, that Nasa Eilu Toilei Shaloi, that's such a tremendous change. That Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who heard how to do that to the Yidden. He was the one that had it. And that's what the Gemara means. He could have hidden that away. He could have put it in his pocket. Chas v'chalishma, but he didn't, Moshe Rabbeinu. He came down, and on the same day he called in all the Yidden, but before that he called in the Bnei Aaron, which was still holding on to that deal. He called into the Bnei Aaron, and then later the Ali Yidden, and he gave them over that Indian what they are Mamlechus Kohanim, and they're a holy goy in the Indian of being a Pashto man. They're holy. That's to say that their goof, mamish, is a holy thing compared to the bodies of other people. It's a holy Matthias Hadosha, a new Matthias altogether. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu gave over to them on that day, because he heard that fresh from the Gevura. He heard it from the very Indian of Atzma Sein Seif. It's well known the Alter brings a Gevura, the Indian from Atzma Sein Seif, and he gave that over to them on that day, B'yoyim, that he heard it. And so that's the day that actually happened. So once that's happened, it's happened. But on the day that it happened, then it's got this unbelievable novelty and this unbelievable koyach to change you in your very moves, and it did. And then after that, that's the thing that follows. From generation to generation. So therefore Rashi says that B'yoyim, in the day that he heard it from the Eibishter, then he made the Yidden, and particularly the Bnei Aaron, he made them his own personal tellers. They became like mamish, his kinder, because he gave out to them what he heard purely from the Eibishter. And it's well known, the famous diktuk in Chassidus, that Moshe Rabbeinu was like a funnel. You know what a funnel is? A funnel is the thing where you pour in liquid at the top, and the same liquid comes out at the bottom, but it just comes in a way that you can put it into a specific place. And the way you have it, if it's in a big keli, then it'll just pour all over the place if you try to pour it in a specific area. And what the funnel does is it just limits it, but it limits it be'etem, in the very essence, and makes it possible for it to enter a specific area, or a very small area. So that's what happened to Matan Torah. It says that the Moshe Rabbeinu, he was the funnel. He took the whole etzem of the Torah and the whole etzem of Gilei Elokus that there was Matan Torah, and he just drew it down through an amazing tzimtzum, pnimi, ba'atzmi, and he brought it down into the air of this world. And Nimtzalef, he said that Moshe Rabbeinu was even more than just a mamutza. He wasn't just a go-between. No, Moshe Rabbeinu was mamish, a vehicle to bring over Atzmas Ein Seif into the world and into Yidden with the Makablim, with that Gilui of Atzmas Ein Seif. And if I followed that Moshe Rabbeinu, on that day, B'yoyim Shediber Hashem, Moshe Rabbeinu had a koyach miyuchad. He was the funnel, through which it was brought to Etzem Gilui of Atzmas Ein Seif. Ivamil mitzad that, everybody who heard that from him, l'choira, became his toil days. Amam Eile, Lefise, asked itself the gewaltige Shaila, as in came all of them a toil days. Everybody's toil days. Why wasn't the Dafki there? The Bnei Aaron were his toil days. So the answer is that Ein Chanami, in a certain way, that's true. But Vibal, as the Bnei Aaron, they themselves were Kohanim. In the Mamlechus Kohanim itself, they were the Kohanim. In other words, that they had a Kedusha Neisefes, V'nifloa, even alle Yidden, even though all Yidden were Kohanim, but they were the emissary Kohanim, as you might say, Kohanim Yuchodim, Kohanim Hamashuchim. And that's why the Pasuk goes out of its way to say that they were Kohanim that have been anointed with the Shem and HaMishchah. But that's a tremendously high Madrega. Therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu saw right to teach them and to give them, first of all, that amazing Gilui. And therefore, they were, as it were, they were the emissaries of Moshe Rabbeinu, somewhat more than the whole cloud. And Imkain, what's the first Rashi? I mean, Imkain, then the first Rashi seems to become a bit, in inverted commas, tame. Like the second one. So therefore, Ein Chanami, what we could suggest is that the first Rashi is talking about afterwards, after it had already been the day that Moshe Rabbeinu heard that, and already when it won't necessarily be Moshe Rabbeinu in person but it'll be all the great teachers that took it all from Moshe Rabbeinu, gave it down over the generations. If they go in a way of lifnim mishuras hadin, in other words, that they learn with people in such a way more than what they're just obliged to do, then they will have a power that it's like as if they also bring these people into being, but not in the way that they mamish make them into toilers, or in a way of ki'ilu yilodei, not toiler shalei, but ki'ilu yilodei. So how does that work? Because look, when you think about it, if you look in the Rambam in Hilchos Talmud Torah, the Rambam says that you're mechuyev to teach everybody. So everybody's mechuyev to learn Torah. If they're not, then you're mechuyev to teach them. In other words, that the father's mechuyev to teach his son, and then the Rav is mechuyev to teach anybody. He's going to teach all the people, even if they're not his sons. So where does it fit in this whole lifnim mishuras hadin business? How does it fit in? So we have to say that what Rashi is hinting at is that at that particular moment, Moshe Rabbeinu could have said, look, I'm different. I'm the first Makabel HaTorah. My union is to teach the whole cloud. Why do I need to bother myself specially with individuals? I'll just teach the whole cloud. So, and the fact that he busied himself with the individuals, that gave over a special koyach into the whole Seder of Limud, as it's going to go in the Doirah. In other words, that it could be that there are certain peoples, and it could be that particularly in the modern world where you've got all these amazing things like computers and mitzvot and all sorts of ways, where people walk around and they say, oh yes, I saw this and I saw that and I saw something else, and I know this pasuk and I know that halach, and I know where do you know it from? From something dot info dot something like that. Well, that's how I learned it. That's where I got it from. Com or something or other. That's how I got it. In other words, nowadays nobody has any teretz anymore. Nowadays you can learn Torah. There's plenty of Malamdei Torah. Yeah, there's all sorts of gadgets. And not only that, even prior to that, there's Bli Ayin Hara. Yeah, there's plenty of koilos and plenty of yeshivas and all sorts of people that are all around to teach people. And therefore, if you go out of your way, nonetheless, and you take on yourself to teach people Torah in a way that's not just to teach them Torah, but you want to in some way really instruct them and introduce them to the inyan from Torah in a way that they will become new people, ki'ilu yilodei, then you get a special koyach from the Eibishter, and that comes through Moshe Rabbeinu. And it comes through the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu made everybody into a mamlechet kohanim, and it comes to do it. You have the right and the koyach, if you devote yourself to your talmidim in a way that it's not just enough to hadikot b'yetzel lidei ha'choiva. In other words, not that you say, oh yes, well, these guys have got to have a yeshiva, so here I am, I'm teaching them Torah. After, I punch the time clock, so then I say, Shalom Al Yisrael, and I'll worry about them next time around when I come around in another 48 hours or 28 hours or however much it is. Now the mensch takes himself and he devotes himself to the inyan for Talmidim and to Torah in such a way that it's lifnim mishuras hadin. And that's what the whole inyan of Mivtzoyim and the whole inyan what the Rebbe wants is that we should give away our time and our koyach to other people to teach them Torah, not just in a way that they could have maybe learned Torah either in a moised or from somebody or from a group or even from the computer. But you mamish devote yourself and you go specially out of your way, like Moshe Rabbeinu did with the Bnei Aaron. According to the Maskil of David, it's a very good point. He didn't need to do that, Moshe Rabbeinu. He wasn't really obliged to teach any individuals. Moshe Rabbeinu's in was to give it over to the whole cloud. And that was a tremendous task. Moshe Rabbeinu had to call in groups after groups after groups. I mean, in those days there weren't any computers, and there weren't any adequate loudspeaker organizations with adequate what they call stereo sound, marachis, and the whole mass. Moshe Rabbeinu had to call in people and teach them, personally. And the fact that he went out of his way to teach Bnei Aaron and to give himself over to the Bnei Aaron, noisef of the whole Ikechiyu, that teaches us that even generations afterwards, that power lives on. And that if you devote yourself to Talmidim that way, then it's ki'ilu yilodei. It's ki'ilu that you put into him a koyach, that you turn him into a new inch, a naya metzius. And in that gufa there's the two diktukim. Like we see, either you turn him into a new metzius, or you mamish make him like Reish Lachish learned what he was about tshuva, what Reish Lachish learned from the gerus of what Avraham Avinu made, the people, that you can mamish make him all over again. You can mamish turn him into a naya metzius. You'll tell me, well, that happened only once in history. That happened in the Yom Shamosh Rabbeinu Shama Mipi HaGevurah. Ain't no chanami. Aber these inyonim olamayla mizman olamayla mimoke. And if it's possible, to even reach such a madrega, where the Talmidim become even that they are mamish newborn people, or al kaponim, they start all over again, or you mamish make them into a new material. Mamish turn them into a new person, that they're not recognizable anymore like what they were before, even liatzmam, even to themselves. And the Father Gemara said over there at the end of the Masechta in Sanhedrin, that a man can even make himself, as they thought, even if he doesn't have a Rav, if he really learns and he gives himself over for Mesiras Nefesh, then who is Atzma? I didn't read you that part. I got enough on my head with that. What's the pshat in there? Well, it can certainly be included in what we're talking about here. Over there in Kriya Shema, Rashi's talking about another inyan over there. Rashi's talking about the etzem yachas of the Rav mit the Talmud, and therefore he doubles it over. He said that the Rav with the Talmud, that the Talmud is like kinder, and the Talmud, the Rav is like a father. Rashi deals with the pratia inyan, and it's tzarichian la'esato to be mechalik all the different chilukim. Of the fact that Rashi doesn't connect the two is a sign that he feels that prat over there in Kriyat Shema is something you already know, basically from here, and over there we're dealing with the details of it. Therefore he doubles it up. And he says that the Talmudim are like Bonim, the Rav is like a father, and he brings all sorts of pasukim. But the one thing is that a very fascinating interest, that there's a Gemara and a Sifri, but the Sifri is a Medrash of our sages. It's a Medrash on Sefer Bamidbar, Sefer Dvarim, and in the Sifri it's brought that the Talmidim are like Bonim, and it brings 3 psukim. Rashi brings 4 psukim. Rashi brings a pasuk that the Sifri doesn't bring. Rashi brings Bonim atem l'Hashem ela kechem. How do we know that Talmidim are like Bonim? Because we say there's a pasuk that you are like sons to the Eivisha. What's it got to do with it? All the other psukim talk about it only from teachers. Bonim atem l'Hashem ela kechem. Nobody learns from the Eivisha. You learn through the Torah and through a Rav. What does it say? Bonim atem l'Hashem ela kechem. That's Rashi's Yesh Loimer. With that, I can't get because there's not a shir in that Rashi. It's shir in this Rashi. But I'll upon him Yesh Loimer that we could say that with that Rashi is being maras to what he already hinted over here, that there's a koyach in the Rav to give over that message mamish how it was, fun elakus directly to the how it was, b'yom diber Hashem es Moshe b'har Sinai. And it's very interesting, the Lashon b'yom diber Hashem es Moshe. Why shouldn't it be written b'yom diber Hashem im Moshe? Now it's well known, it says that the word es is like tofu u'batel. When you write the word es, that's like completely bottle of tofu. On that madrege, Moshe is mamish over the Eibishter. He's mamish niklar in Elkut. And that in exists also in Bonim atem l'Hashem ela. But anyway, it's not the point to go into that Rashi over there. We've got enough to do with this Rashi here. But I'll put him Dayan Sarik Bir that whole in over there. However, we see here in Cain that there's a power of teaching Torah that you can mamish cause a person to be born, and ultimately speaking, you can cause him to be made. You can kill and make a whole new Matthias out of it. Now it's an amazing thing that we find Benegeh to Melech HaMoshiach. We find Benegeh to Moshiach, in the second capital in Tehillim. Is anybody? I don't know if anybody's got Tehillim. I forgot to bring Tehillim. In the second capital of Tehillim, it's written that David HaMelech says. Thanks. Good. Thanks a lot. Oh, nice Tehillim with English. I'll look at that. So it's written like this. It's written that David HaMelech says, Asapro el Chayk Hashem. And so the Meforshim say that David HaMelech says that he's happy to tell always a thing which is like a chok from Hashem. And you know that a chok, which you do know I'm sure, a chok is something beyond seichel. A chok means a statute that we don't know any reasoning for it. What is the chok that he likes to tell? That Omar Eli, that the Abishur said to me, David HaMelech saying about himself, that the Abishur said to me, B'niyato, you are my son. Ani hayoim yiliditicho, I have this day brought you I brought you into birth. I've given birth to you. So everybody asks, what on earth has that got to do with David HaMelech? I mean, the Abishur said to him, you're my son, and he said, today as if I've given, not as if, but Yiladaticha. And I looked up in the Medrash Tehillim, and it's much in the Medrash Tehillim over there, and according to the great Meforshim, they learn more foolish that way, that this is talking about David HaMelech, but cloud, not just personally David HaMelech, but how David HaMelech is later going to reappear in Melech HaMashiach. And there's a union in Melech HaMashiach, what the Abishur says to him, B'niyata, you're a son, and it's like as if, not like as if, but I have given birth to you this day. Yiladaticha. A union for mamish, hiloda, birth. And one of the Meforshim out there says, I'm not quoting him exactly, but this is the Noise Dvoro, that the union of Melech HaMashiach is going to be such a new thing. It's going to be like a whole new existence. And therefore the Rambam says, we don't really know, and in a way it's not really even worth trying to picture in your mind what it's really going to be like when Moshiach comes, because it's beyond our ability to grasp and to know what the world is actually going to be like when Moshiach will come, particularly in the latter period after Moshiach has already been Mishkala. The famous view of the Rebbe that the Rambam himself holds that they're like gradations, and there's like two periods. Later it's going to be a period of absolute Gilui Elokus, even more than immediately after the coming of Moshiach. That's the pshat, or that's the nuance of the implication that Ani Hayoim Liditicha, Moshiach is going to be a whole new birth, a whole new thing, because he's going to represent the Gilui Elokus in a way that the world will be completely and utterly Ein Oid Milvade. All right, the Rambam brings that Kamayim, Layam, Machasim, the whole world will be just covered with Elokus and swamped. Absolutely, it'll be like the earth underneath the sea, in which it'll be pure and utter Gilui Elokus, and lo yeh esik kol ha'olam kulei ela lo das poiro. That's what the Rambam says. That it won't be the busyness of the whole world, only to know Elokus mami. Lo das. That's one of the diuk. The Rebbe talks about it. Das is in from iskashus pnimiyad, like Poritania. Lo das poiro. That's an Indian from Beniato. You're my son, you're a new birth. So here we see Noisa after Indian from the Yelodei, which for sure Melech HaMashiach has in himself. There's an Indian from Ani Hayoim Yeliditicha, that the Abishur is going to make him a whole new birth. Because he's going to represent a start of the world all over again, but a start of the world in a way that it's the emes all over again. Because that's what the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Lamed Vav, in the 36th chapter, or 36th of Pamayim Chai. But the Alter Rebbe says that the world was created originally, only ultimately for the time of Yemosha Mashiach and Tchias HaMeis. That's what it was created for, Melachatchila. And if I say the whole thing we're living in now, this whole unbelievable, what you might call confusion, with all due respect to Chas v'Sholem, not meaning that anything the Eibusher does is a confusion. Of all Chaponim, like human beings, it's very hard to work it all out. Yeah, that is only a leader, and that's what the Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos. It's a corridor. It's not the real thing. It's only leading someplace else. It's not the real thing. And that's not just a Musa Shmuel. That's not just a Musa Drosha. That happens to be the Emet. Lefi the Alter Rebbe, the world as we know it is a prosdor. It's a corridor which is heading someplace. And not heading in the direction of confusion and destruction, Rahmanin Islam. What B'nai Adam can cause it to go off its course, to do that, but it's heading in the direction of Yemois HaMashiach and Tchilas HaMeis. And so therefore the shout on the part of Yidden that they think a bit more, Me'alu Me'eva, is that they say Ad Masai. How much more do we have to put up with this prosdor? Let's get into the traklin. If you learn your Pirkei Avos, you're already familiar with that loss. So let's get out of the prosdor and let's go into the palace. Melech HaMashiach is going to be the introducer and the liver and the mamshich of the Torah in the palace, not the prosdor. Not the leader, but mamish in the Etzim palace. Melech HaMashiach is going to be. So that's a inif and ein arich. It's a new living altogether. It's a nayazach, and that's the pshat. Ani hayoim yiladicha. On the day of Gilui Melech HaMashiach, it's a whole new birth. It's a nayazach. And therefore, people who learn from Melech HaMashiach also become new people. And the power of Melech HaMashiach is that he has this ability to cause you to be Kilu Yolodei in a way that was really Asoi. It was really like it wasn't Matan Torah. And therefore, those of us who were by the Rebbe, we saw the Farbrengen. We know what it means that after a Farbrengen with the Rebbe, you could feel that you were a new Tzir. It's an amazing feeling, but you couldn't in any way allow yourself to feel the way after a Farbrengen like you felt before from it. It just wasn't child. Because that was a inif and ani ayom yeladim. It was a new inif. Altogether, anayam matziyas. So what I want to suggest is that when the Rebbe founded this program, that the Rebbe started a thing which was be'isha hazman, it was a new thing, even though the Mishnah a couple of years later started with other yeshivas in Yerushalayim, v'oid. Of a be'isha harega ad kama sheyaduli, there wasn't an idea of a yeshiva where people hadn't learned when they were children, and they hadn't had the tremendous privilege of being brought up in the ways of Torah or mitzvahs or mitzad ta'am. They maybe were small children, but later in their lives they drifted off, etc. Or the founding of a yeshiva where people should be taught Torah in the way of a yeshiva, pink to see other people, and they should be brought to be emissary, limudei Hashem, or that was an idea of the Rebbe. And I challenge anybody to challenge that. That was an idea of the Rebbe. And therefore, you guys happen to be in a yeshiva where it's mamish, we expect of him, we hope, and we pray, and we try to put into it in such a way that it'll be ani hayim yeliditicha, that you'll be born another type of Messiah. And that's the pshat they call malamed ben chaverei Torah kilu asa'oi. It's like as if he's making it, like he's making it into a whole new Messiah. And therefore you can't come to this yeshiva and just pray around and say, oh, you're a little bit of Torah, a little bit of this, a bit of something, watch a few crazy televisions, or does, and computers, and cigarettes, and mouses, and stuff. Oh, yes, I happen to also be... It doesn't work that way. And ultimately speaking, you'll chop yourself, and you'll realize that lo zeh ha'inyan, or it's ani hayom yeliditicha, it's an inyan of bringing about a whole new material, and it's going from the prosdor into the traklin. And it's going in a way that the Eibishter says personally to those who are Talmidim of the Rebbe, the Talmidim of Melech HaMashiach, B'ni ata, you're my personal Inyan, you're my personal son. Therefore the Rebbe brings the whole Inyan of Har Sinai b'chadash, like it's going to be when Moshiach will come. And that's the second Rashi, what Rashi said, Na'aseh Toildeit, we're mamish the sons of the Rebbe. Because he brings down in his Ameneifim Mipi Agura. He's bringing a whole new Iskalis of Elokus, which is like the Pasuk in the Novi says, Teira Chadosha Mi'iti Teitei. And so the Rambam says, Chas v'sholom, Melech HaMashiach won't make anything new in the Torah. He's not going to teach any halachas or any inyonim which are not there anyway in the Torah. So was it a Pshat Teira Chadosha? Now the whole Mahus will be new, and it'll affect new people, and it'll make new people. And it'll change things into a new material. And that's the Inyan of Yilatika, that's the Inyan of birth. And that's the Inyan of Ki'ilu Yilodei. And therefore Rashi says that Stavki comes in an Eifan that's not B'derech Hiyu Mamish. It's something that you have to listen to, and you have to go out in a way that you're not really Mechuyev. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu did. He wasn't really Mechuyev, according to all these great Meforshim, to do what he did with the Bnei Aaron. That's why his name is put in here. That's the whole reason. The Bnei Aaron had to be mentioned here because of their yichus, and they're very miyuchas people, and there's no way you can equal yourself to them. But if you go out of your way to teach them, then you've got a ma'ila, noirov, and ifloah that even they don't have. And that is it, as if you brought them into being. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu indicates. And that's the Inyan what the Rebbe wants with Mivtzoyim, with approach to the public, with the whole Inyan that the Rebbe brought about, your Futsu Mayan Aselcha, what the Baal Shem Tov brought that about, not the Rebbe. But the Rebbe taught the world, what does it really mean, your Futsu Mayan Aselcha? What's it a pshat? How is it going to function? But that when you go in a Eifen, that you're not really Mechuyev, all these people, who says you're Mechuyev to worry about them? Let the computers worry about them. Let somebody else worry about them. And you say, no, I'm going to, Mami should take my time and devote it to Ben Chaveri. Yeah, Ben Chaveri, then you make a whole new Metzias with the koyach of the new Metzias. Ani ayim yeliditicha, that's Melech HaMashiach. And that causes and brings about a whole new Metzias in the world. And therefore, if you talk to people about the Rebbe, about the Inyan, Moshiach, and you talk in the name of the Rebbe, people say, Niet Nikavo. They say there's nothing else apart from the Eibishter. That's what they say. And if you don't believe me, then I think I told you the Maisa when I was in Australia now. I had a whole amazing little thing that happened to me. And it's just indicatory of how these things are the case, that I went over to spend the Shabbos by the house of a shliach there in the city of Perth, which is way down in the middle of nowhere, way out in West Australia and in the southwest of Australia. And I went out, isn't it? Yeah. I went out to the house of the shliach out there. And there was a guy waiting outside, and he said that he wants somewhere to be for Shabbos. He's a businessman. He came to Perth on Thursday, and all of a sudden he realized he's got nowhere to be for Shabbos, even though he's got a hotel, but he can't spend Shabbos in the hotel. So somebody told him to go out to this and this place, and they'll look after you. Kachoya, he was taken for the meals by the sleep, he was put up by another balabas to sleep, and I heard he was okay. He had a very geschmack of Shabbos, this guy. So I could see that he had a strange accent, but I couldn't figure, he was American. He was an American businessman. He came out on business. He should be talking another type of English. It didn't sound to me as if it was an American accent. But in front of all the people at the table, and I couldn't say to him, where did you get that accent from? It wasn't nice. It just didn't work out. So I kept quiet. I just conversed with him, and he was full of bias. He was a very interesting guy. So the next day, by the Kiddush over there was very informal, and somehow or another I came up late, and I sauntered up to him, and we just sort of stood quietly apart from the other people, and I said to him, could you please tell me where you're from? I said, you're not from America. And he said, oh no, he said, I am from Plach, from an area in Russia. He was a Russian Yid, and the accent was accurately picked up by me. He was a Russian. And he was from this and this area. Now, they made there's a big tall fellow with a nice-looking middle-aged man. He wears a sort of a light-colored suit, a bit sort of posh. He's also from Russia. He's also from Russia. So he heard me talking with this guy about being from Russia, as he came sort of, sauntering over. He wanted to get into the conversation, and he said to me, I'm also from Russia. I said, oh, very good. So the two of them sort of said, where are you from? It turns out they were from the same general area. That he was just in one town, and he was in another. So they were always, they started saying things to one another in Russian, phrases, and the whole thing. That left me on the outtake. I couldn't really keep up with that. But anyway, all of a sudden, he turns to me, this Russian fellow that I started with at the beginning, and he says, oh, something. He said, I was by a couple of Farbrengens by the Rebbe. So he said, yeah. I said, the Rebbe. He said, I said l'chaim to the Rebbe. I gave the Rebbe l'chaim. I said, that's this is really something. And so, I began to sort of turn the conversation. And he stressed to me that he lives in a part of America where he doesn't know Lubavitch Chassidim. It's all either Polishes or Litvaks in the area where he lives, all Litvisha or Polishes. He lives in a big frum area in the United States, but not Lubavitch. So all of a sudden he's telling me about the Farbrengen, and all of a sudden he looks around like a person about to do something mischievous. Looks from all sides to see if people. So I was wondering what's coming next. And all of a sudden he says, Yechi HaMelech HaMoshiach. I was just dumbfounded. I said, wow. He said, I was by over there. The mashki is the wine is particularly very strong. Have you noticed? He said he'd had a little bit of the wine, and he was a little bit, he was okay. He wasn't vitamin, but he was a bit, how do they say, frail. So all of a sudden he says, Yechi HaMelech HaMoshiach. I said, wow. He said, I was by the Rebbe, and he said, I saw the Rebbe, and what the Chassidim say, that Yechi HaMelech HaMoshiach, they're right. He said a loud voice, he said, they're right. So in the meantime, there's a whole group of people sort of standing, looking at what's going on. All the people are sort of, turning, looking at what's going on. So all of a sudden, I said to him, let's sing a nigun. It was a very beautiful moment, so I said, we have to sing a nigun. He said, oh, yours? He said, what, nigun? So I said to him, niet, niet. So I don't know the Russian, you understand? But all of a sudden he said, and he started singing. This other fellow started singing together with him. And all three of us hold on to one another, and we started jumping up and down on the spot. And we were singing. I couldn't really sing it, but they were singing. It was mummish, very loud, and the three of us are jumping up and down. So all the people in the Kiddush were dumbfounded. They all come here and say, what's going on here? Who are these guys, what's that song, what's it all about? So we see that he moved from, first of all, remembering that he's from Russia. Then he remembered he'd been by a Farbrengen with the Rebbe, and then he remembered that what the Chassidim say, that the Rebbe is Melech HaMoshiach, they're right. He said, Yechi HaMelech HaMoshiach, and then he said that all adds up to Niet Nikavo. There's nothing else apart from Melech. No, so what is that? And that's what happens when you talk with people about the Rebbe. That's what happens. Favusi do it because we're now in a moment, we're now in a period of history, we're going out of the corridor we're moving into the palace. We're going straight into the palace. When you learn a bit of Torah from somebody who really means it, and he's gone out of his way to do it, even though he's not mamish mechuya, and even though that may be his job, but he gives away from his time and his effort, I'm going to take it from Yad in that schus. Everybody becomes a new being, a new Metzias, and then they all run out to meet the great new introducer and the great new Metzias, Malkeinu, Mishachenu, great Kedushas Admor Shlita. Thank you. Have a good evening, guys, and a good Shabbos Bamidbar.